We've gone from people who are trading Bitcoin, who are holding Bitcoin to get rich, to owners that are rich. These people don't need to sell their Bitcoin. They don't even care about Bitcoin. If Bitcoin never entered their portfolio, they would still be rich. And that is the type of buyer that's coming in. And those buyers never ever sell any assets. It's not like they just don't sell Bitcoin. They don't sell any assets. And the way that they're going to get into Bitcoin is probably through borrowing against their portfolio to expand their position into Bitcoin. Or maybe if they've held stocks for 30 years, they're going to do the same thing, right? Let's say you've held Apple since $30 a share and it's gone through multiple splits. And at this point, you're like, hey, let me diversify 15, 20% of that position into Bitcoin. That's the buyer that's coming into Bitcoin now. And that's the buyer that's going to continue buying as the price goes up. It is a very, very flawed understanding to say that as the price goes up, people are just going to sell, right? Because you're completely ignoring the new type of buyer that's coming into the market. And that's what I want you and me to focus on, because that's what's important. The new buyer, the BlackRock buyer, that is what we need to focus on. Forget all this other, what the average person on Twitter is going to do, because that's irrelevant now. The average person on Twitter, including myself, is completely and utterly irrelevant to the price of Bitcoin at this moment in time. I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a short period of time to get as many people as possible to one Bitcoin. Because if you haven't got one Bitcoin, your entire life fucking purpose should be on getting to one Bitcoin, because that's the thing that's going to change your life. Nothing else is going to change your life. If you are sitting there going, hey, I want to, do XYZ with my life, the single biggest opportunity right now, the single biggest moment right now, the single biggest macro trend right now is Bitcoin. As the price increases, the demand also increases for the product. This can be seen in various different ways. For example, a rare watch, right? As the price of a Patek Philippe Nautilus, as most of you know, I collect watches, as the price of a Patek Philippe Nautilus goes up, we saw that the demand also kept going up because it is a Veblen good. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this applies to Bitcoin. This applies to Bitcoin, and a lot of people are not understanding this. A lot of people seem to think that as the price of this asset goes up, more and more people are going to continue to sell. But what they don't understand is that the new buyers that are coming in will get more excited. They'll get more excited as the price goes up, which is why I'm sitting here looking at how people are reacting to this. And I think, after we hit $96,000 Bitcoin, right, as we approach and we're hitting that $100,000 Bitcoin, the demand is only going to go up. So why do I think that we're going to see an increase in demand after 96,000? It's very, very simple. The more Bitcoin goes up, the more the demand increases, because you have more liquidity, right? You have more ability for big players to come in and manipulate, quote unquote, manipulate the asset, try and manipulate the asset. Manipulation is not always bad, right? A manipulation of an asset is also, for example, if I want to stagger my purchases, that is, I am, manipulating the purchasing of this asset. You can't really do that unless you've got a big market cap. Once we hit past $100,000 a coin, we're going to have a sizable market cap, right? And that's going to inspire big players to come in. It's also going to inspire institutional players to be even interested in this. Who the hell is deciding to disturb me while I'm in the middle of recording, right? So this is one thing that I think a lot of people are completely failing to understand. Because of the supply nature of Bitcoin, it is going to be a Veblen good, because think about it. As the supply dwindles, more people purchase, the new buyers that are coming in, as we've been talking about on this channel for a while, and if you haven't been following and subscribing, please do that, because this is the type of information that I think is important for people to understand before they get wrecked. It is very, very important to understand that as the price goes up, the supply starts dwindling, and then people think we're going to hit some magical number and the supply is going to increase hugely. What have we seen so far? What we've seen is that every single dip that's happened since the ETFs got launched has been bought up. BlackRock's not had a single day of outflows from their ETFs in the first 6 months of launch. This is a phenomenal thing. Now, will there be outflows? Of course there will be outflows, even from BlackRock. But The fact that there isn't tells you something about this asset. It tells you that this asset is very, very special and unique, and this asset is turning into a Veblen good because as the price goes up. So what I think will happen is this: we'll get to somewhere like 96,000. People will be waiting for the 100. There'll be a massive dip. That dip will come, and then a bunch of new buyers are going to come in because they see the asset approaching 100, and then we'll blow past 100. And I think that's what's going to happen here. The 96 number is not some technical number. It's just a number I pulled out of my ass to show you, to demonstrate that we're going to get close to 100. People are going to sell, right? Rightly so, because if you've been holding, let's say you've been holding Bitcoin since $300 a share. Sorry, $300 a Bitcoin. My old mindset kicked in there. $300 a Bitcoin. Look, there's going to be people that want to sell because they want to buy a house, they want to buy a car, they want to take care of their family, they want to take care of their loved ones, they want to enjoy life a little bit, and that's absolutely fine, right? I don't have any issues with people spending their Bitcoin to improve the quality of their life. Do I think spending Bitcoin on coffee is a good idea? No, I don't. I think that's pretty moronic. But if you want to spend Bitcoin because you want to buy you and your family a home, I think that's a very, very reasonable thing to do. Plus, you've been hodling since $300 a Bitcoin, and you get to 100,000. I think that's a pretty fair thing for any family to do, so you can build the empire base from where you will be attacking the world with your last name. So that's fine. I don't have a problem with spending. I have a problem with selling Bitcoin, but I don't have a problem with spending Bitcoin. And a friend of mine, Fred, actually mentioned that, and I thought that was a lovely way of explaining how this should work. So I've stolen it now, Fred. Thanks very much. So yeah, I have no problem with people spending their Bitcoin. I have a problem with people selling their Bitcoin, and I think that you know, as we approach 96,000, 100,000, a bunch of people are going to sell. However, the thing that people are not taking into account here, and this is one of the things where, you know, the debate that I had with Giovanni, the creator of Power Law, one of my points was that there are new types of buyers coming into this, right? There is a rotation happening that historical data can't predict into the future because that change is happening, which is why the very reason that it can't predict it is why the bands are so wide on most of these charts. It's like, you know, I got an update on the ranges of a price prediction based on the Power Law, or now known as the Power Opinion model, after watching that debate. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. But the range was like, you know, 550,000 to 2.2 million, maybe touching 6 million, you know, over a 10-year window. It's like, oh great, you have a $5.5 million range. Who gives a shit, right? Nothing matters. But the reason why the range has to be so wide is because there's things that you just can't account for, and these things are going to develop, and there's no way empirical, historical observation can look at that. And so what's happening is that the buyers are rotating. You know, I was having a conversation with a Bitcoin, I won't mention his name because I haven't asked permission whether I could share this or not, but he's prominent, and he said, look, it is quite interesting to deal with the thought that being relevant in an industry for so long, he's very, very prominent, being relevant in an industry for so long, and within a year you're suddenly irrelevant because a new player and a new market shift and a new transition has happened. And that's why I've always said to people, within the space of 1 year of BlackRock filing for an ETF, we have a Bitcoin Senate, a Bitcoin House, a Bitcoin President, a Bitcoin VP. The other side of the aisle that is basically anti-Bitcoin is now looking at it going, maybe we made a wrong policy decision here. We want to converse and try and make this better. Bitcoin is the macro trend. That's what you should be focused on, in getting to one Bitcoin. And understand this, while there may be dips, look at what's happened to these dips. They've been bought up immediately by these ETFs, by these big buyers, because the buyer rotation is happening. Bitcoin will continue to be a Veblen good. It will continue to momentum accelerate to the upside on price, as yes, there will be dips, 100%. I'm not saying anything's going to go up in a straight line, but those dips keep getting bought up, and when we get to 100,000, those dips will get bought up faster. When we get to 150, those dips will get bought up faster. When we get to 200, those dips will get bought up faster. So that's what you need to think about here. Bitcoin is a Veblen good. As the price goes up, the demand goes up because of the supply nature of Bitcoin. And until you understand that, you're not going to understand and not going to appreciate the true value of what this asset is, because scarcity is the ultimate asset. It is not about the underlying asset. respectfully, it's not about Bitcoin. It's also not about real estate. It's not about stocks. It's not about any of that. It's about the scarcity that these assets provide, and Bitcoin just provides the most scarcity to the most amount of people at any level of the economic scale possible. And that's why no matter what type of prediction you want to put on Bitcoin, ultimately, there are always only 3 rules to Bitcoin. Step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy.